and for affordable price for their publications. Besides books, publication divisions also publishes 18 monthly journals. The flagship journal being the Yojana, which is published in 13 languages. And some other journals like Valbharti, English Kshetriya, and other things, as you all know. The Yojana, our flagship journal, is counted among the largest circulated journals in the field of development journalism. And it is published in 13 languages with a combined circulation of above 2 lakhs per month. Every year, publication division participates in Kolkata Book Fair. As part of this book release, as you all have seen, we have put up one stall where we are selling not only this book, but our other publications on films and theatres. I would like to request all of you to browse through our books there. I take this opportunity to thank PIB for inviting press for this book release organization and SRFTI for hosting this book release function of publications divisions. I'm very sure that all of you will love reading this book, 75 years, 75 films, India's cinematic journey. Thank you.
आपका शुभ नाम?
अमिताभ नाग।
और ये पुस्तक आपने जो लिखी है किस प्रेरणा से लिखी है?
This is part of the 75 years celebration of Indian independence. So this book represents 75 films over the last 75 years. So from 1947 till 2022, there are 75 films, and I've tried to trace the journey of Indian cinema through the last 75 years.
तो इस किताब में और क्या-क्या चीज़ है?
It's mainly a collection of essays through which, but each of these essays are not the typical film reviews. They try to bring out certain identity of Indian, what we call the Indianness of us. So it looks at the different aspects of Indianness. It's not about only Hindi cinema or Bengali cinema or any one particular place's cinema. It's all the different languages which we have, films representing all the different languages.
कितने लैंग्वेज की फिल्मों के ऊपर में आपने ये काम किया है?
It's difficult to say a number, but like we have films from the south, we have films from Tamil films, we have Telugu films, we have Kannada films, then we have Hindi films, Bengali films, films from the northeast like Manipur and Assam, and also films, Marathi films. So it covers the entire Indian, the different languages in which Indian films are being made.
मतलब पूरे भारतवर्ष की?
Yes, it probably is not every single language, films representing every single language, but it covers mostly a diverse range of Indian films.
कितना समय लगा सर?
It took around 2 years for me to write this book. I started off in 2021 and completed it in, I think, 2022. And it got published in June 2023, this year.
इसमें आपको करने के लिए क्या-क्या मेहनत करनी पड़ी?
First, I had to get the films. To write on 75 films, I had to watch many more to come to a list. And the most difficult task is to actually come up with a list of films because any such list is always subjective. So irrespective of that, I took a bold step in the sense that I didn't rely on national awards or something for my selection criteria. So I felt that the films which have a local flavor as well as a global appeal, those are the ones which I have kept in this book. It's not my personal favorites only, it's which films are significant and it hopes to be a primer to those who will approach Indian cinema for the first time.
आपको प्रेरणा कहाँ से मिली?
I was actually given a task of writing a book on 75 years of Indian independence. So I was asked by the then DG of Publications Division. She asked me to write a book on Indian cinema. So I deliberated on a couple of topics and then finalized this one. So I thought that this should give, it's sort of an encyclopedic in nature, and someone who doesn't know about Indian cinema will find certain films which will be of interest to start looking into Indian cinema. I think those who have watched a lot of Indian cinema also will find certain references, some of the films which they have not watched before.
थैंक यू सर, आपने बताया तो मैं दर्शकों तक आपकी बातें पहुंचाने की चेष्टा करूंगी और धन्यवाद देती हूँ कि आपने इस तरह की जो किताब लिखी है, हो सकता है आने वाली पीढ़ी जो पढ़ाई कर रही है फिल्मों के ऊपर, उनके बहुत काम की हो।
Yes, I hope so. Thank you.
थैंक यू।
Be part of this occasion. We do work together again as part of the library committee. It's one of our experts. So this idea of word consciousness that strives our relationship. But in some sense, it is also important for students of cinema to understand that apart from the pedagogical call, the idea of writing in cinema has been a preoccupation of many people from many disciplines. For example, someone like Hugo Monster was just invented, he started writing. So there is a Gene Epstein or anyone like, say, Andre Bazin, the kind of contribution to discover, because she was telling about Ray, and actually Bazin had a prominent role in discovering Ray. It is like saying, is also to bring forth something unseen, unfelt, unheard, and bring it so that the idea of art, of cinema, which is actually a form, to give it a value, so that it finds its destiny and it travels. So the idea of critiquing and bringing in the discourse of things has been a prominent factor in the development of cinema as a fine art. So the contribution of your book is of so much of value, so that I feel the students of cinema would engage with it and find other kind of engagement with the book, so that the preoccupation with cinema and life continues. That apart, I would thank each of you to have come here, especially for the first time meeting Somadhi. She said that she's just written a book on Bachchan, and I like the title of the book, Bachchan and the Other. So we would soon be inviting her to launch the book in the institute. Thank you so much to have said a lot of anecdotes and inspired a lot of people over here. I once again thank on behalf of the institute and my own fraternity, and thank you. See you soon.
That speaking on cinema is not my forte. I'm really not either a film critic like myself. But when Bhupendra asked me that would you like to come and would you please give some time, I said I was very willing, mainly because Bhupendra was talking to me about it. Then before Anirban could ring me up, another gentleman rang me up, Anindul, Anirban's friend and from Bhupendra's service. Amitabh's friend, and of course then I was looking forward to the book coming my way, and when it came I started reading it. Well, first of all I must say that the book is not just a book on 75 years of Indian cinema. It's really something which captures the 75 years of India, because it is describing the social trends, the economic issues, the problems we had, the wars we fought, in the same breath as it was discussing cinema. So for instance, I'll just give an example. When he talks about Sholay, he talks about the angry young man, the genre of the angry young man, why it came about, what all caused that genre to actually start, and then he explains how it is different from the rest of the angry young men's stories. That Sholay, there is no mother figure here. This is one case where there are angry young men and not man, but there is no mother figure, and they are trying to correct certain wrongs which they perceive to be being done to society. And they are, by the way, they are criminals. And here they rise on that occasion and they do it. So this, the way he has described it, the way he has talked about Satyajit Ray's epochal film, Opu Shongchabi, or about the Opu, about the traveler, the entire traveler. It's not just the narration, it's just the way he has explained the scenario in which Ray has come up with these movies, the way he has talked about Meghe Dakatara, or even Choti Si Baat, for instance. He said that on the one hand, while in the angry 70s we have the angry young man, Zanjeer, etc., there is also this other genre of middle class films, giving little stories about what middle class India is thinking about. The little fun, the small little enjoyments that they do enjoy. And that is what makes the entire narrative of the story so interesting. It is not just a book about cinema, it is a book about India, it's a book about Indian societies, how it developed, how it comes forward. And I think he has done a fantastic job of the book. I would request all of you to read it. It's spellbound, and in some ways it holds you for a long time. I in fact, as it is, we have Manipur, something or the other happening every day. Our chief minister keeps saying something or the other. Then I had a governor's interview between your book coming my way and my reading it. But yet I started reading it, and I would read it in the car, then I would shut it, then I would go back home and read it again, and it kind of held me. So I think it's a fantastic job. Publications division must be commended for being able to bring out such a book. I mean, it's a very unusual. One of the few. I mean, there are some books of publication divisions which are extremely great. In history, I would remember always 1857, written by SNSN, which I think is the best narrative about the revolt or the War of Independence, as we call it, that has ever been written. I would imagine his book is going to go down in history of one of the great books which publication division produced. Thank you.
Gathered here on this special occasion, we are truly honored to have such a distinguished gathering for the book launching ceremony of 75 years, 75 films, authored by Amitabh Nag, a work brought to public through the collaborative effort of the publication division of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. Our gratitude extend to our guest Soma Chatterjee ma'am, a revered film critic, and of course the man of the hour, Amitabh Nagji, the author, whose passion for cinema gathered here today to celebrate its launching. As we delve into the pages of 75 years, 75 films, we embark on a journey through time, culture, and the diversity that defines our great nation. Amitabhji's work encapsulates the essence of Indian cinema, traversing its various phases from the pre-independence era to the neo-realistic movement, the new wave cinema, and into the realm of modern filmmaking. The task of selecting a mere 75 films to represent this expansive canvas is no small feat, yet Amitabh Nag's logical and insightful approach brings us a collection that stands as a testament to the rich tapestry of Indian cinema. This celebration is particularly poignant as it is a part of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, a time when we reflect on the journey of our nation over the past 75 years. What better way to commemorate this journey than through the lens of cinema, a medium that has not only entertained but also influenced and shaped our collective consciousness. To all the esteemed professors, students, film critics, journalists, and officials of SRFTI and PIB present here today, your presence magnifies the significance of this event. Your shared enthusiasm for cinema and culture undiscovers the importance of such endeavors that bridge the gap between the past and the present, helping us better understand where we stand today. In conclusion, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you for being a part of this momentous occasion. Let's celebrate the power of storytelling, the magic of cinema, and the journey of our nation through 75 years, 75 films. Thank you.
So thank you, Mr. Roy Chaudhary, as well. I called you up and you agreed the first instance. Thanks to Publications Divisions and special thanks to two people, Mr. Bhupendra Kaithola and Dr. Shushrut Kumar, without whom this event here couldn't have been possible. So they were the inspiration and the planner of this program. So big thank you from my side to both of you. This book, I will just give a backstory of the writing of this book. So this book germinated from an idea which was in 2021 January, when the then Director General of Publications Division, Ms. Monideepa Mukherjee, she gave a proposal to write a book on Indian cinema as part of the 75 years. And the topic which she thought of at that time was cinema and India's freedom struggle. So I started working on that, and the reference through which she got my name was again the same as Mr. Roy Chaudhary mentioned, Anindra Sengupta, who happens to be a dear friend and with whom I spent some of the best years of my life in watching and discussing cinema in the dilapidated Dhirozeva Hall of Presidency College in the last millennium. So, so I started researching on Indian cinema and freedom struggle, and soon realized that there is a book by Gautam Kaul called Cinema and Indian Freedom Struggle. So it was written in 1998, which is 25 years back, but I found out soon that there is nothing much which I can add to that book. That is, at that point in time, the concept of 75 films and 75, last 75 years, that dawned on me. And I gave that idea to the Publications Division DG, and she agreed. So that is how this book's idea formed at that point in time. Now the most difficult part, and I think Somadi will agree and others who have watched any list of anything for that matter will agree, that it's very difficult to come down to a list of n number of things. So if you say 50 books, then every 50 books list will be subjective. Similarly, every 75 list of 75 films is very much subjective. So I could have gone through an easier route, taken an easier route in the sense that 75 films which were awarded nationally or internationally. So my job would have been easier. I could have pointed finger at the National Film Awards and said that they are given the award, I am just writing a book on it. But I felt that instead of doing that, let me have my own list, however subjective it is, and try to figure out a local ambience and a global appeal. So to me, the choice of a film is in its significance and the impact it had on Indian cinema. I tried to put aside my personal favorites. I can give you a couple of examples. Aparajita is my personal favorite in Oku trilogy, but I put Pathir Panchali because of the impact it had on Indian cinema. If you look at Ritwik Ghatak, the two most dear films of Ghatak to me are Subarnarekha and Komal Gandhar. But I put Megheta Katara and Jukti Taktu Gappo because the sentiment of the Bengali middle class refugee is best represented in Megheta Katara, even if it is not my personal favorite film. Similarly, Jukti Taktu Gappo gives an autobiographical element which was hitherto unknown in Indian cinema. So these are the factors which I thought should be kept in mind in my choice of the films which I kept in this book. There are many remarkable films which did not make into this book. You may think some of the films, why they are here, why not some other films, but I think that is part of the parcel of the game. I will just read the last paragraph of the introduction to give you an idea about what is the tone of this book. It is a short one. 75 years back, at a cul-de-sac between tradition and modernity, Indian cinema pushed boundaries to devise new meanings out of life and via creative pursuits. There were dreams, heartbreaks, and anger. Filmmaking then was a middle class's profession, though accessed across the class barriers. 75 years later, as Indian cinema is at the brink to cross over to a postmodern vision of life, it remains still primarily a middle class occupation. The virtues of dreams and the deliverance of anger of the last millennium has, however, transformed to sheer undeterred cynicism and skeptic sarcasm. In recent films, this articulation of dissent has become all-encompassing, as the Indian middle class probably has dissociated its link from its rural counterparts. Over the 7 decades, the country has bred several mini-India within it. Films like Newton, through its sardonic misanthropy, highlights the distance between the powerful middle-class elite and the subject of India's thought-provoking cinema. In the next quarter of a century, Indian cinema may witness a language that is vernacular to its maker and caters to its subjects rather than one which is made for the disparaging consumption of its burgeoning middle class. Probably then, instead of cinema being a vehicle of the anxieties and uncertainties of one particular class, it will transcend to become a mouthpiece of India, the nation. Thank you.
Years old. I am 80 years old. So I have all the memories from my childhood. So when I am reading the book, I am also remembering the way and the ambience within which I saw Kalpana. When I saw Kalpana with my mother, it was at Sri Cinema near my house. I used to live in Shivaji Park in Bombay. That is where I was born and brought up. And Ma told me, come on, Uday Shankar's film is going on, I'll take you there. And I never dreamt that I would become a film critic later on. But because it was on dance, and my mother was a very good dancer, she took me for the film, and I was fascinated. I didn't know the story. I couldn't understand anything. I was at least 4 or 5 years old. I was only fascinated by the whole aspect of dance. Everybody is always dancing, dancing, dancing. That is all I remember. Then today when Amitabh called me up and said it's there on YouTube, I started watching it again. I couldn't finish it because I had to come here. So when I started watching it again, I was fascinated by the very fact that Uday Shankar has expressed dance not only as a creative performance, but also as a socio-political and historical statement. When you go back and see Kalpana, you feel that dance is much more than just a performance on the stage. It is much more, it reaches far beyond that. And I am also fascinated by the fact that Uday Shankar perceived of it so long back. The film was a flop. It wasn't a very well-made film because Uday Shankar, after all, was not a filmmaker at all. He wanted to make a statement which he couldn't make through his dance. He did it through film and through a fictitious story which runs along 2 levels. Then after that I read his review and I saw that what I was thinking and what he had written was almost running along the same lines. So this is about Kalpana. Then let me talk about, which film is I talking about? Bealish, 1942. Now this, when did I see it? I was going on listening to my parents talking about Bealish and Bhuli Nine, Bealish and Bhuli Nine, Bealish and Bhuli Nine, Hemen Gupta, because they were all, both of them were cinema addicts. And I didn't know what they were talking about. I had not even heard the name of Hemen Gupta. But then suddenly my mother said, in Poila Boishakh, at the Bengal Club, they are going to show Bealish. And I was fascinated.
Which year?
I'll tell you, I was, I think, 16 years old, so that must be 59, 60. 1959, 60. I'm 80 years old, as I told you, just completed 80. So, and I went there wearing a black sari. I don't know why I wore a black sari. We used to wear saris at that time when we were 15 or 16. You know, no salwar kameez, no tracksuit, nothing else. So I went there and I loved the film. It's very, as he has written that it's very melodramatic. Right, it's very melodramatic, but I loved Manju De. And of all the people, Pradeep Kumar and Vikas Rai. And Pradeep Kumar, we know him only as the historical hero of Mughal period films. But in this, you find a different Pradeep Kumar. All right. Unfortunately, what struck me about Bealish, about Bhuli Nine, he has written also about Bhuli Nine, the film which I have not seen, also directed by Hemen Gupta. The problem with Bhuli Nine is that what struck me was that I read that Hemen Gupta was a great follower of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. But in Bhuli Nine, he propagates Gandhi, which is very surprising to me because they were running at opposite poles of every day, and my husband is a very big fan of Netaji, so every day he's switching on television and going to the Netaji channels. Whether they're telling lies or whether they're telling the truth, I don't really know. That's not my interest. I'm sitting on the computer writing something so I can hear what he's listening to. And they are running down Gandhi like anything, as if he is a villain of a Hindi film. So, Bhuli Nine, I watched Bealish and I loved it. It was in black and white, you remember. So these are the tiny bits, and the ambience is changing. I have not gone to a cinema hall to watch Bealish. I was watching it at a Poila Boishak after the function was over, all dance and song and everything, and I was sitting there and watching, mesmerized, because I was mesmerized by cinema from my childhood. And I got all the beatings and scoldings and everything, because in those days there was no television, no video, nothing. So one had to go to the cinema hall to watch movies, or try to sneak in a movie when Durga Puja was there or Saraswati Puja was there. Some screening would always be happening. And I made it a point, I requested my mother, begged of her, that I cinema to baba dekhbo hi rattir bela jege ho jai ho. So this was a fascination I had for cinema. Then I remember Do Bighas Zameen. My parents were invited because Bimal Rai was a family friend, and I was too small, so I was not even invited, and my parents didn't even bother to ask me, Chobita dekhte ashbe amader sange. And they went to the grand premiere at Metro with Balraj Shani and everybody. They came back and told me, and I saw I saw it much later. But about Do Bighas Zameen, what specially appeals to me even today, I saw it so many times because I've written a book on Bimal Rai also. So what appealed to me very, very strongly is the element of music that Sholi Chaudhary used in Do Bighas Zameen. Alright, he has used the Russian March in a Hindi song, and in a television interview, when television was black and white, I heard him saying that how music can, can work like an electrical energy in a film. For example, he gave the example of Battleship Potemkin by Eisenstein, for days together without identifying himself, and he learned how they talk, how they sit, how they walk, how they ride the rickshaw, and then only he said, okay, now I'll act. But he was not very happy with his acting at all, because he knew that he is not a film actor. But when we see him, we cannot recognize that. So this is what and now what am I doing? I'm watching my cinema in a tablet. Now the ambience of watching cinema in a cinema hall, or at a function, or at a birthday party, or buying tickets and standing in long queues. I still remember that we went to watch Tufan Aur Diya by Shantaram at Plaza Cinema in Bombay. Alright, it's in near Dadar. Really famous cinema hall. I don't know whether it still exists or not, because I have lost touch with Bombay. So there, I remember that we all decided to go to see Tufan Aur Diya. It was a big super duper hit. And for the 3 o'clock show, all the children in the building, there's a ticket in the rear stall, not in front, downstairs only, not balcony. We couldn't afford balcony in those days. So we went and stood at 10 o'clock in the queue, and the queue went on from there till Shivaji Park. You cannot imagine. And everybody standing in the queue. We were very hungry because we had not had lunch, but we had no money to buy potato chips also, because we had only the 1 rupee 25 paisa to give for the ticket, and we had counted it all. And then when the
सर ये बुक लॉन्चिंग के ऊपर आप थोड़ा बताएं।
एक्चुअली SRFTI हम सिनेमा पढ़ाते हैं, सिनेमा के बारे में लोगों को सिखाते हैं, और SRFTI में हम क्या करते हैं, जो सिनेमा रिलेटेड जितना फंक्शन होता है वो करते हैं। ये एक बुक लॉन्चिंग है। ये जो किताब है वो अमिताभ नाग ने लिखे हैं। उसमें वो इंडियन सिनेमा का 75 फिल्म्स 75 फिल्म मेकर्स के बारे में उन्होंने 75 ईयर्स 75 सिनेमा, तो उसमें बहुत सारे फिल्म मेकर का बहुत सारे इम्पोर्टेंट फिल्म है, जिसको हमने सोचा कि हमारा ये होगा अच्छा वेन्यू फॉर दिस थिंग, और हमारा स्टूडेंट के लिए ये एक आई ओपनर होगा ये किताब, सबके लिए भी अच्छा।
तो आपने इसीलिए इस किताब को यहाँ पर लॉन्चिंग की?
नहीं, हमने लॉन्चिंग करने के लिए हमारा प्लेटफॉर्म दिया है, वो तो है हमारा पब्लिकेशन डिवीज़न जो है मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन एंड ब्रॉडकास्टिंग, हमारा सिस्टर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है। हम भी MIB का एक इंस्टीट्यूशन है, उनका भी है। तो हमने सोचा कि ये जो है इधर हम प्लेटफॉर्म देंगे तो हमारा स्टूडेंट और प्रोफेसर के लिए थोड़ा
अच्छा
इंसाइट मिले।
सुनकर देखो, सुनकर देखो, सुनकर देखो जी, ममता राहुल मोदी बोले, लिखे जितेंद्र जी।